Hi, this is Elias Guy from Underground Bay, and I am here with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
My name is Christopher Nelson, and I've been a drummer for about 11 years now.
Awesome. So that's actually going into the first question. How did you start drumming?
I've always had a drive for music since I was a little child, and I've begged my parents to basically let me try all these different instruments. Tried basically any single one that I can get my hands on, anything from guitar to tambourine. I picked a piano and bass and all that. Nothing really interested me. Nothing actually felt right for me until I was around 10, and for Christmas my dad got me a drum kit because I basically was like, all right, next instrument off the list, let's try the drum kit. And ever since I picked that up, I loved it and I haven't stopped.
What are some of your influences when drumming? Like, who inspired you to drum?
I can't necessarily say I have a single inspiration. Before I picked up drumming, I was always really fascinated by the works of people like, obviously, anyone who's a drummer will agree with you. They had people like Neil Peart, John Bonham. Everyone who plays drums is influenced by those. But the thing is that people in particular, I've been really fond of drummers like with their very bluesy and style with lots of rolls. And you have people like Bill Ward, Tré Cool, Tim Erb. They're some of probably my all-time favorite drummers.
Nice. I'm actually a huge fan of Tré Cool. Also, go Green Day. Can't wait to see him in August. You're actually going with me to that?
Yes, I am. I am going to, and I'm going to throw you right in the middle of the pit.
Oh, God. You know what? Until now, I know you can mosh to anything, but the thought of moshing to Green Day, it sounds like an awesome idea.
Yeah, heaven on earth, ain't it?
All right, so going into the next question. What bands/musicians have you worked with in the past?
I've worked with a lot of different individual people who have had separate projects. Sometimes I would hook up with a musician just for a short time, just to jam with them. I've worked with people most of you probably haven't even heard of. I've known Rob Hart for quite some time. I used to be good friends with Chandler Jones. Britton Daniels used to be around here. And I've played a lot of different bands with people. I couldn't even name all the people that I've been able to play with.
What is your favorite genre to play?
That would depend on the type of mood that I'm in. In particular, if I'm in that aggressive mood, people who play drums will tell you that, if they're sad or they're angry or stressed, they get behind the kit and they drum it out. And for that particular mindset, I always really like to play punk because of the anger of it, and I like the energy, and I love beating the hell out of those drums. As opposed to if I want to practice musically and I want to really challenge myself, I'll probably play something a lot more musically complex, maybe a little more progressive. I might try and replicate a song by a prog rock band, or maybe something more complicated. Try out things by Rush or Tool.
I do want to ask all drummers because, as someone who is trying to learn drums and wants to master it someday, and actually, believe it or not, you are my teacher, did you have any challenges with drumming?
Well, first of all, I'm not a very good teacher because you and I haven't practiced together in half a year.
You guys.
We haven't practiced in forever. But the biggest challenges when it comes to drumming and learning how to play, there's a lot of different challenges and there's different types of it. First of all, for anyone who's going to play the drums, the biggest problem for me is money. It is the most expensive instrument. You constantly have to buy new sticks. You will break your heads, your cymbals, equipment, and none of that's cheap. It's all in fact, it's effing expensive.
Literally, you did that. Because I told him the no swearing rule we have here.
On a whole other perspective, you have to deal with the physical elements. It'll wear out your fingers. You guys can't see it because it's the radio, but I have these cuts on my fingers that come from constantly playing.
Ow.
They get sore all the time. It wears out your muscles. You need a lot of endurance, especially if you're going to play an hour and a half, 2 hour set. It's very difficult. It's exhausting. And the most annoying thing is when you're playing and then your sticks go flying out of your hand across the room. Of course, there's a certain level of practice, and when you get the right fulcrum and you get the right grip on your sticks, it'll become a more trivial problem. Anyone who plays shows professionally will know that you need a stick bag. You need a bag for your sticks, and you always need to have 20 of them. Otherwise, your show's going to be interrupted a lot. As something that you might be interested in, there's a video on YouTube of Green Day playing at Vanola Valley High School before Tré Cool was in the band with John Kiffmeyer. And there's quite a few moments because he doesn't have a bag, he just has 2 extra sticks. So you'll see him playing and it'll go flying out of his hand. So the song has to kind of slow down a bit as he uses his one hand just to hit the snare, just to keep the time, as he has to reach over and grab the stick that flew away because he doesn't have any extra. And no one wants to see the show fall apart.
All right. So this is going to be a pretty interesting question, and I did want to bring it up. what's your view on the role and function of music, as well as the, like, for example, politics, social, creative tasks of artists today, and how do you try to meet those goals in your work as a drummer?
Well, it's tough to do that from the point of view of a drummer, depending on especially from a political point of view. And when I think political and music, I think of like the punk movement. I think of bands like Rage Against the Machine. And in a sense, well, if you're trying to have music that delivers a message, you want the sound of the music to match that message. So if you're in a punk band and you are trying to replicate that angry message, you need angry sounding music. And as a result, you need to have a drummer that can help translate that. You need to be able to play with that type of physique. And as a result, so your style of playing needs to reflect the message you want to bring, whether it be a political message or a social construct. And that's a result that comes with the musicianship. Although I would say more personally that I'm not really sure how well you could fit a role of drum, that I could apply that to my drumming in particular. I haven't played with another musician in quite some time. And when people think music and of a message in music, whether it be a satire or a political commentary or a social commentary, it always comes back to lyrics. Not as much a drummer point of view, but it can be.
Yeah, like, well, punk rock is most known for having a lot of, like, politics in its lyrics, and just when people think, okay, what's the best genre to show off, like, politics, and that is punk rock. I mean...
Well, it has to be a negative connotation.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have bands like the Grateful Dead who have, like, the exact opposite. They have these patriotic songs, like Liberty and U.S. Blues. And so their music is much more softer and upbeat, and their musicianship has to reflect that the same way.
Yeah, like, well, I think of, like, The Clash, like, I Fought the Law, and then,
but those are supposed to be angry songs.
And then,
like I said, there's different types of messages.
And then, like,
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
It's fine. It's radio. What do you expect? We always cut each other off. And then another one on kind of social commentary is Dead Kennedys. The song you showed me, Jocko Rama, which I think is a really good, like, kind of satire of how high schools think of their football players and, like, how they're kind of disposable almost. All they care about is winning those trophies.
Yeah, especially from a coach's point of view. And also, they have this plateau. Especially when I went to school at Amador. And if you weren't, like,
Same.
You had to be either, if you went to Amador, to survive and be respected, you had to be either a jock, you had to be B, you had to have someone who was some type of computer guru knowledge, like you had to be like a tech master, it's Pleasanton, or C, you had to be drinking the Kool-Aid, as I say it. You know, you have to be, all right! One of those excitedly, unrealistically happy people.
No,
Like kind of like an RA that you would see at Chico or something.
Yeah, like, and then, like, you had the slang and stuff. And, like, well, you and I went to Amador. Well, I only went my freshman year, but, like, we were pretty much close, and we were kind of the nerds and the outcast almost.
Yeah, I can't speak for when you moved, but we were at first. And then I became part of the stoners.
The stoner elite.
We weren't no elites besides our own circle. Everyone I knew that was a stoner all got transferred to Village.
I think that's, like, the ideal school is where all the juveniles go and delinquents. But, like, I heard, like, Village isn't actually that bad. I wanted to go to Village.
It depends.
So, yeah. But, yeah, well, this is, like, this question can bring up a lot of, like, social and like, I listen to metal most of my time, and that deals with a lot of interesting stuff. Like, it deals with murder. It can deal with, like, all kinds of very controversial topics, while punk is can tackle social and
we can all
political.
tack each other.
Because, like, if
it
you
doesn't have to be subjective.
but, like, and the thing is that's why I like those genres is they do tackle stuff going on. Like, if you listen to, I think hip hop and rap, if you, especially older, it tackled, like, poetry. Rap used to be kind of a form of poetry.
Rhythm and poetry, that's what it stood for.
Yeah, but now I can't stand it now. I feel like it's gone down. I feel like
every rap song nowadays is based on its melodic gimmick. I feel like everyone says that old music is better, and some people feel like that just because it was their own. But if you listen to older hip-hop, it's much more melodic, especially when you get to the LA rap and you have Tupac and Snoop Dogg and NWA. It seems like they were more interested in creating a song that could flow with the rhythm, as opposed to nowadays it's about, like, it's all interesting. Like it's a song that's like that has some weird gimmick in the singing.
It feels like hip hop and rap nowadays is talking about getting with women, partying. Oh look, I have more money than you. That's what like it feels like. It doesn't feel. I think the only rapper nowadays that will actually tackle some topics is Eminem. But other than that, really, there's no other. Like Kanye West, I can't stand because of his views and like how he is.
He literally said he was a god. Like he actually said the word god.
And I'm like, how can you like? I feel like that's so stupid. And like, that's like almost like when Gene Simmons can't speak English. Said rock is dead, and like that one was just. But like,
well, Gene Simmons is making a point of the direction the music industry is. I mean, don't forget, pop songs have always been the popular songs, but there was an Iron Maiden, a Guns N' Roses, and Nirvana that came out in the same era. There are no big rock bands tying the music industry together today. There is no Guns N' Roses, Sex Pistols, Nirvana, Sabbath, anything of this type of generation. We don't have rock and roll used to be one of the forefronts behind the pop scene.
Yeah.
Now it's more like a subgenre. Like when people talk about successful rock bands, the bands that sell out stadiums, I mean, like Taylor Swift sold out Levi Stadium, and before her, the Grateful Dead established 1965 sell out Levi Stadium. Now, do you think there are any bands that have been established in the past 5 years that were big enough to sell out Levi Stadium?
Metallica? Iron Maiden?
I said established in the past 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
I mean, like recent bands, because those are bands that have had 20 years of their household names. Every person on the planet knows who Iron Maiden and Metallica are. But those are bands that were originated from the 70s and 80s and so on. And are there any bands of this generation that have that? Because there was an era where bands could get to success like that. 2 or 3 albums and they would become household names because the music industry was different. People would pump out albums like you pump out DLC.
Love that. You should be on our other show, the other show I do, Generation Gaming, where we talk about video games. I mean, like I said, this topic, and I mean, we're only at the 15-minute mark out of 30 minutes, so we can still spend a little bit more time.
Just don't want you to go over on the interview.
Oh,
we talk a lot of good stuff. I don't want to have to cut it out.
Yeah, but again, we can actually we'll probably like sacrifice music over this. I mean, interviews are more for talking, not for songs. That's what for the actual show's for. But yeah, like just music nowadays. I'm actually trying to. My dad. I was talking to my dad about coming on, and he wants to. He proposed the topic on how he listened to music nowadays, like how it went through. Like my grandma, which had the little like kind of vinyl, and then like or going to concerts or listening on the radio, and how his generation, which was the 80s and 90s, how we still had the vinyls, but then we had cassette tapes, and then we had the Walkman and the 8-bit tracks. And
well,
then
the 8 tracks are older than the 90s. Those are from the 70s.
Yeah, well, he mentioned.
By the time the 90s came around, cassettes were already outdated.
Yeah, well. Continuing on, he went into like how CDs were really popular and big, and then now how we're kind of in this digital age. And like he actually brought up a good point, which I really didn't think about, is that people buy individual songs. They don't buy a whole album anymore. They buy individual songs.
You know, that's a good point you mentioned that.
And
that's how I like to listen to music. In albums, I like to listen to a collective album.
But artists now are figuring that out, that we only like singles, basically. And so we're listening to that now, and so artists just put out singles. They don't put out complete albums anymore.
Which is good for the pop industry. It's always been dependent on singles. But for rock and roll, it's sometimes the album has to be part of a collective. That's where the rock opera comes from. I mean,
Green Day's American Idiot.
Perfect example. Albums can tell a story, and they tell us. Imagine if we were listening to The Wall in singles. Pink Floyd albums in particular were especially not meant to be listened to in singles. Each album is supposed to be its own collective narrative that you have to listen from start to finish.
I actually like the point that you made, because that was the exact same example my dad used, was the Pink Floyd's The Wall album, which is actually my favorite Pink Floyd album.
Some albums will have opening and closing tracks to establish that. Remember Offspring and the Smash album? Mm-hmm. I mean, at the very beginning it says, "It's time to relax." It's like, lean back and enjoy the melodies. And then you get this punk rock album. You even have an intermission song. And at the very end, he's like, I hope you enjoyed our time together today. And then you have like an intermission type of closing song. Like it's just a melody that fades out. It almost plays a story like a movie. I know this album in particular doesn't, but albums can do that. And there's a lot of them that have done that. And when you the music industry has changed to work in singles, it's harder to do that type of storytelling. There's an album that came out in 2012 by Rush called Clockwork Angels, which is a collective story of a boy who goes on an adventure trying to find himself. I think it's some type of coming-of-age tale. It's hard to tell with Neil Peart's very convoluted lyrics, but they're beautiful. But when you release that album with focusing on singles, it loses the value of the story. And the album's supposed to tell you a collective story. And you can do a lot of creative things with that.
I might go cut the song out and just have the whole interview talking because this is really good.
Works for me.
All right. So I'm going to go a little bit over because I have to also do cutting. So yeah, I mean, we're making a lot of good points here and just talking about the music industry now and then where it's heading and what, that's a good topic, and I think my dad can go more into that if he wants to come on the show. And then Chris really brought up a lot of good points about the music industry now.
There's one other thing I want to mention that I think is really important that people don't think about the music industry.
Bring it up. This is radio.
One of the most significant details is the way that scouts for record companies like hunt for new artists has changed. All the way until the 90s, you would have these systems where they would send certain executives into small-end clubs to see if they could find that. Because the music industry was so different that the value of the artist was insignificant. If this was 1971, they would take a band that just got a good club going, sign into a 5-album deal, and then wouldn't pay them anything. They'd pay them diddly squat. They would basically get scammed out of their money, and if they were successful, then they'd give them a new contract that says, now we're going to pay you your money. And the reason is that way you don't have any sense of failure. These are the big cigar, glass of brandy type of executives that we think of, and they would take anything, throw it on the wall, and see what sticks, because we didn't treat the music industry as legitimately as we do now. It didn't have its own recording art. We didn't have the Recording Artists Association now. They didn't have their own lobbying group.
Well, now you also have to think about, look at YouTube and how big that has gotten and how many artists have gotten popular. I mean, look at Justin Bieber. He got popular through that, and I feel like that was stupid of him getting popular there. I feel like now we have artists who are getting popular and they're not musically talented.
Because it's all about the bottom line, getting the largest common denominator of people to like the music, because now it costs much more money. The music industry doesn't make money the same way it used to. Touring is really the only way artists even make money consistently. And when
merchandise went down, like, you have places like Hot Topic. I mean, I shop there a lot, but if you actually go down and how the artists don't, Hot Topic gets most of the money, and the bands don't get that much of the money.
They have counted algorithms for these record companies that determine which type of music is going to be the most successful, and that's who they determine who's successful. And going what you said about YouTube, don't forget, it all depends on the bottom line of money. For a comparison, a lot of bands promote themselves through YouTube anyways. They still need that same platform. But Google also loses a lot of money operating YouTube.
Oh yeah, a lot of people don't know that fact.
They only keep the website up because they have a monopoly on it. And recording artists don't even not the recording artists, but the record industry, people don't pay for music really anymore. We expect it to be for free. And as a part of this, included with the type of expected salaries, I think we think of famous musicians as extremely wealthy because they are. But in the 70s, they used to be poor as dirt because they didn't have an industry where they could literally take anything, and make money off of it, especially because people had different tastes in music. So there was so much more available, diverse music around because the record company didn't have to worry about the financial flow of it. They were going to make money regardless. But now, because the music industry doesn't make as much money because people don't pay for music, they have to be very, very careful, especially since they would have to pay artists so much. So you have crap like Nicki Minaj, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Ray Schremer.
I have no idea who that is, and I think that just shows knows how much out of pop I am in.
Don't even begin. By the way, it's drummer's ear backwards, and they have like some of the worst. You have these songs like Watch Me Whip that are only famous because they're funny memes that people will listen to for free. The artist isn't going to make that much money in the long run, and neither is the record company because no one's going to pay for it. No one takes it seriously. It's like people don't even take music as seriously as it once used to be. It used to be an event to gather people around a record player and listen to a collective album. Now we listen to music as white noise. It's like we don't even respect it the same way.
Like most people don't forget, music is actually an art form. If you go back in time to if you think of like Bach and Mozart, that was a music form. Like they were up there with artists and painters at that time. And then now how we're now in this day and age where music isn't even treated like that anymore. And it's upsetting to me because one, I'm a huge music fan and I do consider it still an art. I'm actually studying music right now in a music appreciation class.
And the people who nowadays are purchasing the music, it's like when you give people the same product over and over again, they don't really get the chance to experience anything different. Anything could be popular 20 years ago. Now only pop music can be popular as a result because people are just so regurgitating it. It's easy listening. And remember when you have bands that even try to take advantage of that? They just put on some exciting sounds and then horrible auto-tune over it. Or you have bands that take advantage of songwriting techniques. You had the 4-chord song. And you have bands like Nickelback and Puddle of Mudd who rewrite the same rhythms and melodies over and over again.
And talk about the same topics over and
over
again.
And they all sing like this, and it sucks.
But yeah, we're making a lot of good points. And this is basically why I put this question in, because I knew I would get a lot out of you on this topic, because I know you so well.
Because I have an opinion on everything.
Oh, God. I'm scared to get you on my politics show, so...
Oh, you would need a whole hour slot. You couldn't get me to shut up. You couldn't even get me to shut up now.
What Chris got and what he was speaking about is the core of Underground Bay. What I am trying to do is promote actual talent. I go out and see these underground bands and listen to them, and then I put them on my show and really try to promote them and get them out there, because I feel like they have talent. They have something to offer to the world in the music industry, and it sucks that they're working their asses off trying to make a living, and we have all these people who I don't even know we have so many one-hit wonders now. Unbelievable.
It's almost like every artist they're supposed to be one-hit wonders. Most people who sign big bands, a band can't get a 7-album deal anymore. Like when Green Day signed with Reprise, they got a 7-album contract. Today that would be unheard of because you wouldn't expect the lifespan of that artist to last 7 records. Most of them get signed to individual album contracts, or 2 or 3 at most if they have a lot of faith in their work. And even then, it's not even considered a smart decision. All music is decided through mathematical algorithms. There's a really great Dead Kennedy song that explains this, although the relevancy goes back to the 80s, but we've had similar problems. MTV Get Off the Air. That's the name of the track. And I remember the line, accountants instead of music fans call all the shots at giant record companies now.
The topic is that we are limited on time, but I would love to have, if you are willing to come back on the show and we can talk, maybe I can have you on a full 50-minute episode. And I
think that would be fantastic.
I think we can go, and hopefully right now I'm recording on a Yeti on my laptop. Usually the equipment's down and stuff, so, but yeah, I would definitely like to have you maybe on my finale show. Maybe we can really, no music commercials, no nothing. We really nitpick and just go at the music industry and the underground scene. And I think you're a good person to do that. So I have 4 more questions for you before we have to go. Do you see yourself in the future as a professional drummer?
I would like to hope so, but I feel that to become a professional drummer, to make a living off of it, would be so difficult. I honestly can't say how realistic I am about it's a dream of mine, but I can't exactly say how realistic I'm trying to be. I want to blur a certain line between fun and practical. And being a musician nowadays, unless you already have some type of establishment or a reputation, or you suddenly just get a touring job when some drummer breaks his arm, Bono's coming over and they need a new drummer. Actually, who would want to go see Bono?
So going on, what is your favorite kind of drum manufacturer? I know there's a lot. There's
drums is one of the few industries where different companies really does matter. The name of the kit, the brand, carries a lot of weight with it. DW is by far the best, hands down. That's definitely the best quality. Although me, preferably, to get a happy medium between the cost and the quality of the equipment, I always prefer a Yamaha kit. Yamaha Torque Custom is the one that I use at my own home. 3-piece Torque Custom that I have with with a double set of crashes, a splash ride. Very, very basic kit. I never liked anything extraordinarily complex. Mine is like as bare bones as it gets.
All right, so this is actually kind of a bonus question. This is out of my own curiosity. Is there rivalries in between drumming manufacturers? Like, do like Brooks have like beef with another, like DW, or you don't know?
I wouldn't know, and I wouldn't think so personally. I mean, of course there has to be some competition. It's capitalism, and they all want to make the best possible drum they can make so they can sell as many drums as they can make. But you have your high-end brands. DW is a really high-end brand. You have your practical brands. Like Tamas are also really good. Pearls are really good. Those are the reputable names. I think Ludwig is very overrated. And you also have your low end brands, some brands you wouldn't even heard of. There's like a Quicksilver name for a drum kit that companies nobody's ever heard of, and their drum kits are like $300, and they're good for practicing if you just want to give your 5-year-old something to do. Other than that, don't even bother. I always would go with like, if you've heard of the name, it carries weight. It doesn't mean that a brand you never heard of would be bad, but there's certain levels of quality, certain things you got to pick out, and sometimes it's hard to tell with the naked eye. You might want, just like a car, you got to break it in a little bit, and then you can really see what you're getting out of it.
All right, and this is continue on with drumming manufacturing, like drumming with the pieces. Is what would be your dream kit to play on?
My dream kit to play on. Well, from the point of view of, say, a manufacturer, I would definitely want to stick with the Yamaha or the DAW name. Pro would be good. My dream kit would be one that's... Man, I couldn't even think of it right now. There's so many things I would want. I have a kit that's... Because, I wouldn't want my kit to be overly complicated. I've never been a big fan of extremely complex kits.
So, like, something like Rush, you wouldn't play, like, that kind of drum set? Or
I mean, I would like to, but I wouldn't call it my dream kit. I would probably find something like, say, a 6-piece at most. Can maybe... a collection of different types of chinas and crashes. I wouldn't want any more than maybe 5 or 6 cymbals. I would want a lot for a dream kit, but I wouldn't want to go overboard like you see some drummers do, which isn't a bad thing for their type of music, but I play very basically. I'm not extraordinary complex. I'm almost a rock and roll purist with my musicianship, and as a result, I don't need a lot of extra complex things. And
yeah, I don't know if the viewers might know who actually knows band Dream Theater's drum kit. I don't know if you ever seen it. It's
I have.
Oh, it's very like you have like the chimes up there, and you have like all these cymbals, and I'm just like.
You ever seen the movie Wayne's World, the first one?
Yes.
Remember the part when he goes into the drum store and there's that big, and Garth sees that big kid with the balls on his... Hey, I like to play.
Oh, wow. So this is going to be the last one. And this is kind of going back to what your influence is. And this is a topic me and you can talk about a lot. Or kind of somewhat disagree on, but sometimes agree on, is what are some of your favorite bands and singers? But knowing both of us, I listen to metal and punk, so this is...
I have a certain... Well, bands and singers are two different categories, because, like, Dead Kennedys is one of my all-time favorite bands. But Jello Biafra is one of the all-time worst singers, at least on a professional scale. And, but it works for the punk scene. And you have bands that, like, with the singing works good for them, especially in punk and metal and crossover in particular. You have that almost skater voice with, like, bands like DRI or Suicidal Tendencies. And those are the types of bands I would call my favorite. They go in from that heavy type of music. I mean, my favorite bands are, like, I love Tool, Primus in particular, Rush, GNR, Green Day. Big Grateful Dead fan too. I got a lot of I like that type of diversity. You wouldn't usually hear a guy who loves funk to say Grateful Dead too, and I'm a big Sublime fan as well, and Pink Floyd. I like a lot of different forms of rock, but on the singer category is a whole nother ballpark. I think some of my favorite singers are people that can have that type of versatility in their voice. I love Geddy Lee, obviously. Axl Rose is pretty good, but except if he wasn't such a prima donna.
We can have a whole episode on like
just Axl Rose being a prima donna.
I mean, we can go back to that like one incident where he jumped into the crowd and punched that guy.
He's done that a lot, actually.
Yeah, but wasn't there like a video?
That was St. Louis. That was the famous one where a big riot. And going back to singers, I'm a really big fan of Dexter Holland. He's one of my favorite singers. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name right, but Taylor Momsen or Momsen, from Pretty Reckless.
Yeah.
I really like the singer for, I can't remember I don't know what his name, for Tool.
I actually don't know his name. I just know the albums.
I like Emily Armstrong, which is another girl that people probably haven't heard of a lot.
Dead Sarah. Hi guys. Chris and I are huge. Chris actually introduced me to Dead Sarah.
Listen to them.
If you ever, they're really good. Like, I feel like even Dave Grohl said they could be the next thing in rock and roll.
He said they should be the next biggest band, and that's
saying something. I mean, this is Dave friggin' Grohl.
That's another good example of a band I love, the Foo Fighters, but I don't like this. But I wouldn't call Dave Grohl one of the greatest singers. And the same for Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain has a great scream, but Kurt Cobain is not a great singer. But they both have that musical soul to them, and they can write great songs.
Yeah, keep in mind though, Chris is a big Nirvana fan, so he's just like.
Hey, when I say someone can't sing, I'm not necessarily criticizing the work or because like I said, Kurt Cobain isn't really that great of a singer or a musician, but Nirvana is awesome, and it was particularly because Kurt Cobain writes awesome songs. In reality, your ability to write is far more important than your musicianship.
All right, so we got 3 minutes left, so we can just kind of do endless chatter. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, filler.
Yeah, so this interview is for 40 minutes, and then when you do the last...
All filler, no killer.
Really? Did you just make a Sum 41 reference?
I like Sum 41. That's another example. I don't think he's I don't think he's a great singer, but I think that Derek Whibley, but I like Sum 41.
Yeah, I saw him at Warped Tour. They were like really good. I heard
the drummer is that's also I don't even know his name because I don't know that much about Sum 41, but that drummer is BA.
So I just heard Sum 41's actually going with Pierce the Veil, but I don't think they did any California tours.
Yeah, they've avoided the Bay Area. I've been checking their tour dates because I wanted to see them. Remember when I told you we had to choose between Sum 41 and Bad Religion for that show before Halloween?
Yeah, and we picked Bad Religion
because Bad Religion's old and they're probably gonna retire sometime soon. So it's good to hurry up and knock that out because Sum 41's been around for only about 15 years, and Bad Religion's been around since the early 80s. Yeah. So it's more likely that Sum 41 might produce another album and come around again. Especially since Derek Whibley's out of the hospital.
Yeah, and their newest album actually did pretty well. I actually like their new album, 13 Voices, which is funny because my favorite song off the album is 13 Voices. I think that's a good song. Also, Black Eyes is probably one of my other favorite from that album. And then I've been also enjoying Green Day's new album, which is the concert
Revolution Radio,
which is the one you and I are going to.
Yeah, the Green Day's new album is basically exactly what I expected it to be, for better and for worse.
Yeah. Well, you didn't like the Uno Dos Tre.
Yeah, because the thing is that I think Green Day's they lost a little bit of their edge as they grew up, which isn't a bad thing for them to try new things, but they also they try to go back to their punk sound a little bit with Revolution Radio. It has a darker sound than some of their other work, but it also still has that kind of emo sound to it that they had with their 21st century breakdown type of sound. It has a little bit of both. So because I remember Billy Joe said, quote, "I'm gonna destroy the term pop punk." I remember he posted that on Instagram.
And you know what the funny thing is going back on a topic we were, pop actually is not technically a genre. It stands for popular. That's why we have pop metal, pop punk. Basically
pop punk is an oxymoron.
Yeah, because basically all it is pop. When people say pop punk, popular punk, it's all.
Well, pop at this point has become a genre, especially when you come with the techno. And it's all played differently.
Remember when dubstep came out? That's I think that's the newest genre out right now.
It also really breaks down the type of music. Pop music now has a certain type of structural sound to it. It's almost kind of new wave. If you listen to the beats, because they're all done with the machine, it doesn't have the flow to. If you listen to a drummer, you'll hear their accent.
So this has been Aaliyah Sky from Underground Bay with my guest
Chris Nelson.
So yeah, can't wait. Hopefully we'll have Chris. Hopefully we'll have you back soon. And then hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you guys later.
Stay sexy.